Civil Services. The Indian Civil Services dates back to the days of the British Raj. It was established by the British East India Company. Today, the Indian Civil Services have become much more complex and broader. The importance of civil services in a country like India is great. Since it is such a vast country with varied features in different parts, India needs an efficient system of administration and management. This is where the civil servants come of help. The branches of Indian civil services are many. Let us look at them in detail. Indian Railway Service, or the IRS, which is essentially responsible for running India's vast railway network. There are 4 non-technical and technical or engineering cadres in the railways. Entries for the non-technical services are the Indian Railway Traffic Services, IRTS, responsible for freight, passengers and movements of trains. The Indian Railway Personnel Service, the IRPS, responsible for recruitment and administration of staff. The Indian Railway Account Services, IRAS, responsible for maintenance of accounts. And the Railway Police Service, RPS, responsible for providing security to railway properties such as railway tracks, personnel, equipment, etc., is through the civil service examination. However, the Engineering Services, IRSE, has a different recruitment procedure. Second, the Indian Postal Service, or the IPS, responsible for the efficient functioning of the postal and telegraph services. Officers, after training with field officers, are appointed as Superintendent of Post Offices, Assistant Postmaster General throughout the country and also in the ministry at the center. The Indian Audit and Account Service, known as the IA&AS, is the Indian Audit and Account Service which comes under the Controller and Auditor General of India, the CAG, which are responsible for the maintenance and audits of accounts in these states, as well as union and state governments. These officers work in the audit offices under the CAG and in central ministries and state governments. The Indian Defence Account Service, the IDAS, is responsible for maintaining and auditing of accounts of the defence services. Indian Civil Account Service, ICAS, under the control of the Secretary Expenditure, Ministry of Finance, maintains the accounts of the state, central governments and public sector enterprises. It is also responsible for maintaining the complete accounts of the defence services. The first position after the appointment is Assistant Controller of Defence Accounts. The Defence Accounts offices in cantonment, states and Defence Command headquarters are under the jurisdiction of the IDAS, or the Indian Defence Account Service. Fifth, the Indian Defence Estate Services. This service deals entirely with spacious, well-planned, green, landscaped cantonments and maintaining them and administering the property. In this service, one begins a career in the junior scale as an executive officer in Class 1 or Class 2 cantonment, and in the senior scale, you normally will be sent to the Class 1 cantonment as an executive officer of Assistant Director or Deputy Assistant Director General or Defence Estate Officer. Sixth, the Indian Civil Account Services. The separation of accounts from the audit at the union level has led to the creation of new Indian Civil Accounts cadre. The Comptroller and Auditor General of India does not, however, control this cadre, but the Secretary Expenditure in the Ministry of Finance. Government of India exercises this function. Beginning as an Assistant Controller of Accounts, the officers of this cadre are in due course promoted as the Deputy Controller of Accounts and Controller of Accounts. The senior-most positions in the cadre are those of Additional Controller General of Accounts and Controller General of Accounts, equivalent to the Additional Secretary to the Government of India. The seventh, the Indian Revenue Service, the Income Tax Office. Officers of the Indian Revenue Services enter training at this academy at Nagpur. After training, they are posted as Assistant Commissioners either on assessment or other work. While the main work of the department is assessment and recovery of direct taxes, the department has specialized branches dealing with investigation of tax evasion, statistics, and so on, with assistant directors of the same rank. The Assistant Commissioner or Deputy Directors, Communication Chief Commissioners are members in due course. The head of the department is the chairman of the Central Board of Direct Taxes, who is invariably a member of the Indian Revenue Services Income Tax. The 8th, the Indian Ordnance Factory Services, the IOF. They manufacture equipment for the defense services. The IOF officers serve in these factories for a long span of nearly 10 years. They may be asked to serve as commissioned officer of the armed forces for 4 years. At the apex of the IOF is the chairman equivalent to the secretary, followed by members of the ordnance factories or Director General Ordnance Factories, and then by General Manager. The senior and junior scale positions are very much like other services. 9. The Indian Information Services. Earlier known as the Central Information Service, the IIS is as recent as 1987. The jobs of officials from this service is to constitute a press party, organize press conferences, control official media, organize festivals both national and international, etc. The service has a lot of charm and glamour and considerable scope for creativity. Personnel for the government print media, electronic media, advertising agency, union ministries, press advisors are drawn generally from the Indian Information Services. The IIS officers are controlled by the Minister of Defence, Directorate of Public Relations. The work is interesting as it uses the flair of journalism, public relations, and administration all together. There is a special requirement to enter the service. The officers need to have some previous experience of work in a newspaper, news agency, or an ad agency. The promotional channel is more or less the same as that of other services. IIS, under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, is responsible for running government-owned broadcasting and advertising agents like All India Radio, Doordarshan. The service is also responsible for handling press and public relations for various central ministries, public sector enterprises, and defense forces at home as well as abroad. 10th, the Central Trade Services. Personnel from the Central Trade Services work with the Ministry of Commerce, the Chief Controller of Imports and Exports primarily, but they also work under other ministries or public sector undertakings. Beginning as an Assistant Chief Coordinator of Imports and Exports, they rise to the position of Deputy Controller of Imports and Exports. The next position is that of the Joint Chief Controller Imports Exports or Chairman of a public sector unit. Most officers of this service stay in large metropolitan towns. 11. Central Industrial Security Force or the CISF. Industries too need protection, especially the large network of public service undertakings. The CISF officers head this organization. Assistant Commandant is the first position for these officers, the promotion then being that of the Deputy Commandant. The senior positions are that of Commandants or Additional Inspectors. The job is to head the infrastructure. 12. The Indian P&T Accounts and Financial Services. The Indian P&T Accounts and Financial Services takes care of the administrative accounts and financial services drafted by the Union. The senior-most person is the Deputy Director General who heads this organization. The other positions are very much like other services. Next, the Central Secretariat Service or the CSS. Candidates selected for this services are appointed as section officers, selection grade officers, grade 1 posts. The training period is of 2 years, after which appointment is made to the particular ministry. Ministry of Personal Places, the section grade and grade 1 officers. Next, the Indian Forest Service or the IFS. An All India Forest Service was created in the year 1966 for better and integrated forest management. It has a separate selection test conducted by the UPSC. Aspirants to this service must have keen interest in the forest wealth of the country and its management and conservation. They are to be placed in command of the forest resources, both for supply and protection. The multifarious nature of their responsibility makes this service a challenging career. State services also conduct their own exam for this state cadre. Next, Indian Engineering Services. A combined competitive examination for all India engineering services like Indian Railways, Railway Stores, Military Engineering Services, Border Road, Central Water Engineering, Indian Ordnance Services, Central Engineering Services Roads, Engineering Services P&T, Central Engineering Services Mechanical. All these candidates have to qualify by writing a written exam in the offered jobs based on merit and choice of the organization they desire to join. Examination and selections are done for the following branches like civil engineering, mechanical, electrical, and electronics and telecommunication engineering. Why do we study? What is the end of education? Isn't it careers? But when there are so many careers to choose, how do I choose the right career? How can I make my decision right? My future depends on my decision. Which career is the right choice? Careers are confusing. Should I decide my career based on my potential, my capability, my talent? Or should I focus on what are the opportunities available and work on what are the opportunities in society? How do I choose? Environmental conditions, family conditions, my genes, opportunities. It's also confusing. Careers, a tough choice.